In this exercise then, we're going to look at something undergoing reasonably basic motion, basic animation, and working on something that's broadly somewhat physics-based, undergoing, the influences of varying and basic and competing forces. We're also going to take a move aside, so as previously when we've looked at the pendulum and the bouncing ball, we've been looking at passive systems. These things are just bouncing or swinging around, they're just, being affected by the forces around them. They're not creating any kind of internal force. They don't have any motor. As such, we're going to step that up by moving on to animating a vehicle here, which also gets us started with animating things that have actual, rig setups and controls. So here's our little basic car. We're going to be driving him around. And he's very simple. He's basically a full FK sort of system. Let me just give you a quick overview, because often, of course, when you have a vehicle rig set up, or at least a clever vehicle rig, it does a lot of stuff automatically, like suspension or steering or what have you. This one really doesn't. It's exceedingly basic, so as we can animate those things for ourselves. Whilst a nice, clever sort of vehicle rig that gives you a lot of this animation for free is certainly useful and helpful, when in fact learning to animate from scratch, it's more useful and helpful to be able to control all of these things ourselves. So we've got this, main root item here, which is the parent of the whole thing. And the only thing that you'll notice is that we're using this on an align to path method. So that means that when it moves around, it will, point the vehicle in the direction that it's travelling, like this. We've then got this second level shift item, which is sort of an offset. It allows us to move the car and re-spin it within that space like this. We've got this steering here, which controls the steering of the wheels themselves. We've got this body roll object that lets us control, suspension rolling like this. We have this bone here that just is tied to the main car, so that lets us lift and drop it on its suspension there. And we have this slide pivot item here, which again allows us to, just position it somewhere over the, top down bird's eye view of the car to create rotation from that point, which lets us put in, slide and offset turning and stuff like that as well, additionally on top of everything else. So here we go. Here's our car rig in our scene, and what you can see we've got here is just this sort of city layout with just a network of roads that we're going to drive the car along. Obviously that could be fairly, straightforward and boring, and you don't really need to do an awful lot if he's just, sort of, driving to the office or whatever. However, what we're going to try and do with this is we're going to push a more sort of active, aggressive driving style. Who knows why? Maybe he's just mental, or maybe he's like doing a getaway or something. But we're going to have him driving fast and, weaving around corners and in and out of traffic. I say that, of course, we haven't got a huge amount of traffic on the road, obviously. In a final scene you probably would have, but we've just got the odd additional car just dotted around on the roads here, which provide obstacles for him to try and avoid as he's motoring around here. So how do we deal with him? Well, one of the things that you can notice I've done is to his main root item here, I have attached the custom object here, speedometer. So this, of course, lets us get a measure of how fast he is going. We can see it just read out there in the viewport. This is measuring his speed. It reads out in meters per second. And this is helpful to us particularly here because, of course, what we're doing is a lot of off-axis animation. You see, he's not just travelling in a single direction. He goes across, and there's a lot of motion here. While some of it is, of course, straight down the X or straight down the Z, there's a lot of it that's moving across both the X and Z at the same time. And what we need to do, of course, is keep, not so much a fixed speed for, the entire drive action here, but we do want to be able to make sure that we're not speeding up and slowing down too much all over the place unnecessarily. So just to start with then, what we have here, very simple, is just a bunch of linear keys that we've set to put him in, certain turning points to take him on a certain path around the city here. And initially you can just key those in at any point in time. It doesn't really matter. What you'll then do, and what I've done here, having done that, is just to go through between each key and look at his speedometer reading. And if he's going too fast, then I can, just drag that key out, and you see that slows him down over that period of time. Or if he's going too slow, I'd be able to drag that key up and increase his speed during that period of time. And what you can see throughout this whole animation so far is that I've broadly got him going at about 30-ish meters per second throughout the entirety of the thing. It slips and slides a little bit, 31, 29, but broadly 30 meters per second throughout the entirety of the animation. So to start off with, we've set him just along this very simple linear path at basically a constant rate. So he's motoring around the city at a single constant speed the whole time. In case you're wondering, that is give or take about 65 miles an hour. So, he's really going for it. So with those basic points keyed in, which obviously is very simple to do, let's get along and start adding in detail to this animation, shall we? So here's the first thing I'm going to do then. I'm not going to worry for the minute about, the path that he's taking along here. I'm going to first of all deal with these corners, which of course is where we have the keys laid in. Now clearly we don't want him to turn on point, and we're not going to obviously finish on linear keyframes, but we do want to begin sketching out his actual path around a corner like this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come 12 frames before the actual corner point and lay in a keyframe for him, and I'm going to come 12 frames after each of these corner points and lay in a keyframe for him. I'll then delete that in between key for now. At the moment, of course, this has him cutting the corner, but let's not worry about that for now. And what we'll do is we'll go through and we'll work this in at all of the corners, 12 before and 12 after. So that gives us a basic timing of 1 second to go round each corner. He's basically making a 1 second turn around there. And of course we might need to slow that down, speed it up, or tween it somehow, but that's good enough for starting with. So there we go, just continuing to do this here on all of the different corners. Okay, so there we are, nice and complete. And of course, if we look at our speedo, we'll see that he's still broadly keeping that same sort of speed for most of his motion, but you will notice that because we've done that, we actually get a slowdown now on the corners. Why is that? Well, of course, previously here he was at the halfway point and he was making a full corner like this. So the distance from this point here straight to this point and then straight is of course greater than the distance along here. This becomes a shorter distance. That means that by keying it up this way, we've essentially slowed him down already at the corners, which to a large extent is what he's going to need to do when taking the corner. He'll need to slow up somewhat. So that's a handy little start right there. Right, this is all very ugly, of course, at the moment. And also he's just driving straight down the centre of the street at each point, and of course not really paying attention to the cars that he's having to miss or try not to collide with and so forth. So what we'll do is we'll work in some of those details as well. So let's start him out, push him over to the side so he's driving on his side of the street here. Then we'll come along and we'll find this point here where he's obviously going straight through that car. He will have wanted to overtake it, so let's push him over to a overtaking position here. And of course he's not going to want to do that immediately from the start, so let's say that he needs to come up some distance behind it before swerving out to overtake. So let's say around about here. That might give him enough time, but I guess we'll see. We'll bring him back over to the right there. So he comes along like this and swerves out. And then he's going to want to swerve back in. Let's make this a nice quick swerve, of course. We're doing, aggressive fast driving, so let's tuck him in really quite swiftly. So let's say that by this point he's come right back here again to the right hand side. Now we'll look at where he's going to go. Okay, he's going to be going up here, So we'll keep him on the right hand side, let's say up until this point there, and then he's going to be taking the next corner quite quickly, quite aggressively, and so what we want him to do is really to steer out onto the opposite side of the road to give himself, you know, some turning space. So by this point here, 208, we'll bring him right over like that. He'll come across here, he'll be trying to keep it wide and tight and avoiding that next car here, so that's very nice like that. And we'll keep him, of course, trying to dodge back to the right hand side, so we'll key him more or less where he is right there. And by this point, or in fact by the next point, we're going to have him slinked over to this side of the road more. Here we'll have taken the corner and we'll say he's steered quite hard. We'll just have him not quite as far over to the right there and have him gradually pull it back more by this point here. Now this is a corner that's got plenty of space in it. He's got a lot of room to make his turn. So we'll keep him quite high over to the right here. And when he comes out of this turn, we'll push him right out to the right again. So we'll get a real, you know, bit of a overshoot. We might well put a bit of a slide in there, something of a tail slide or a drift to, you know, keep the speed up as he's going round the corner. He'll sort of correct his, you know, direction of travel, keeping it level here, but then he's going to have to do a swift nip out to avoid crashing into this car. So let's pull him out here. Coming back here, let's bring him out wide, so again he's creating space for himself to take this corner, coming out a little wide there, and again correcting himself back to the right side of the street somewhat here. He'll then be coming down and have to do something of a little chicane to keep himself, you know, from crashing into both these guys. So we'll have started to correct himself there, and then by this point he'll have brought himself right out like this. We'll probably have to compress these keys a little later to slow him down, have some braking going on there, and he'll weave out. Let's say he overshoots that chicane a little bit before pulling back quite hard, or starting to pull back, but then of course there's another car in his way, so he's got to try and stay there for that. He's got this very hard turn there, more than 90 degrees, so we will certainly work some braking in at that point. Now he's coming across here. As he comes round the corner, he will have slowed coming round that corner, so we'll bring him back in reasonably tight over by this point in time. Have him continue driving along. Let's see, then we've got another corner here, so we'll keep him nice and tight, let's say until about this point in time there, and he'll once again weave himself out to the side to take this corner here like that, and then of course he'll start to pull himself back in over to the right, something like this, continuing on. And we'll have him, this corner here is quite shallow, so what we'll have him do is we'll really have him blast through that whole manoeuvre. So let's bring him, take that keyframe there. Of course he's wanting to avoid that car in front of him, but we'll keep him tight over here, and then on that side we'll really have him blasting through very fast, and so shooting over quite a bit. Good deal of understeer going on there. That's going to be very tight for him, so he's going to still be tight over here, but then he has to make a fast move of some kind to avoid going smash into this one. And what I think I'm going to have him do, or choose to do, is actually to mount the pavement and just not care about any pedestrians who might be around there. So we'll have him over at this point mounted up on the pavement there, and as he comes around he'll make a quick dodge back into the road like this, again coming around to avoid that car there. We've had him come right over like this, and of course by this point he's going to be making another hard corner. We'll keep him broadly where he is. We'll have him really sort of handbrake it round this corner, I think. Bit of a harsh handbrake turn. So we'll actually be starting to slow down quite a bit for that. Then we'll be coming along more. Just for the minute, we'll say that he's corrected himself over to the right, ready for the next turn by this point. So cutting right across the street there. Coming round here again, taking it a bit wide, perhaps, because he's not slowing down as much as he should. Coming over, little bit of an overshoot like that. And then finally coming straight back down to where we've got him finishing there. So let's take him right back to the beginning and just give that a little play so as we can see it all, happening as it currently is. This is all pretty decent. He's going along there, just taking his, his little moves and time to weave around everyone. Big wide corner there, little nudge around. Again here, having to make lots of corrections as he goes. Slowing down for that corner there and then accelerating out of it. It's a little dodgy at the moment, but we will work that in. Coming through here. He's going to be accelerating and speeding up here, I think, before blasting through that corner, overshooting onto the pavement, trying to weave around. There we go. Handbrake turn around this corner, accelerate away, and try and make that one there as well. Okay. The next thing we need to do with him, really, is to get rid of all of this linear stuff. We could go and do a lot more in-betweening, but it's always going to look a little bit weird. And of course you'll have, sudden changes in speed as well. So what we're going to do at this point is just throw everything over to TCB. Of course we're only looking at the X and Z here, so let's grab all of those frames and let's just select them all like that, and we'll just throw them into being TCB splines. I'm also going to set my options now so as my default curve is TCB. That way when I create further keys they'll be splined as well. And just to start off with, I'm going to take these initial keyframes here and bring up their tension like that, so that gives him an accelerating start. He doesn't start doing 65 miles an hour instantaneously. So we'll just give a little scrub through on that so as we can see what he's doing. And there he is, weaving around and going there, spinning through. Nice little dodges, slowing through that corner, coming in here, whipping round onto the pavement there, up onto the sidewalk. Just a little dodge as he does it. Coming round this corner, clearly too fast there, but that's pretty good. So far, so good. If, however, we give this a quick appraisal, we'll see that doing all of these, little details in our main path here has left us with the odd little problem every here and there. It's not so easy to see directly here in top view, or at least not every instance of it is so easy to see, but we can see it a little better if I switch to this chase view camera that I've got set up. And what we see, of course, is that there's a lot of little bumps and kinks in our motion path here, where we've, weaved him around things. Now, of course, what we can do, is go along, see, here's another one there, is we can go along and, smooth these all out, work with the curves or whatnot to try and make this somewhat better. But again, here we are working with a rig, and so what we want to do is to try and exploit some of what's in that. So what I'm going to do here then is I'm actually going to start getting rid of an awful lot of these little things that we had going on here, like this keyframe there. Let me just work back to the beginning, we'll take it from the start. We'll keep this one here of him pulling around this car and back in. We'll take this and we'll push it more off centrally like that. We'll do the same with this one that actually came before it. Keep that more central. We'll keep this one more central. We won't have pulled him in quite as much there. Take this one, we'll allow it to be more central. And we'll do the same with this one, allow it to be more central. And essentially we're just undoing an awful lot of what we previously did here, you see. We're just sort of trying, instead of putting all of this action on the car straight away on his initial motion path, is we're instead just going to worry about getting a single nice smooth path that works through pretty much the entirety of our motion here, taking him just from point to point without worrying about all of this in between detail too much. I will put a little in between detail at this point though, just to again keep him roughly central. Again, taking out that little kink there, letting that come back a bit more central, letting this come over a bit more central here, taking out that there. We'll leave him up onto the pavement because that's a major move that we want to keep there. But we'll take that out, we'll keep that one where he's weaving around that car, or actually no, we'll take that out as well, keeping it smooth up until this point, and that's there all smooth as well, apart from that one which we can also take out. Right, what we now see that we get, if we run through, is a much cleaner and smoother main motion path for the car here. There's not an awful lot in the way of little, niggles and bumps going along, and I might even actually work this keyframe out there to just make it even smoother overall. So, of course, what we're trying to get here is an overall very smooth motion path in his actions like this. So the car's route, as it were, just takes this very smooth little path. I said I was going to put that one in there, but I'm probably not going to. I'm just going to knock that out as well. So again, smooth, nice smooth actions taking place here. Okay, so there we are. We've got this overall pretty smooth path for him. Not a lot of detail at all to his motion, and we're going to work that out now in other ways. So, how shall we do this? Well, first of all, let's work on some of this speed that we've got going on here. Yep, we want him to, of course, slow down at a couple of these corners. We can just come in and view his speedometer. That will help, and let's look at the corners where we want him to speed up or slow down. I've got that initial takeoff. He can go quite fast throughout all of this here. We've got a corner here, so let's see what's happening to his speed as he takes that. It's not a hugely tight corner. He's going down, a little bit as he comes around it, but not a huge amount. So what we'll do is we'll come to that frame there, just before he goes into the corner. We see that it's coming from this point, so we'll be slowing him up a little bit beforehand. So let's just take all of his frames, including that one, and let's just move them out by a little bit. If I do it by 10 frames, there we go. We see that slowed him down to 24 meters per second here. And then he begins to accelerate again as he comes around the corner. What I'm going to do then is take that frame where he's come out of the corner and everything thereafter, and I'm just going to give that a little nudge, let's say 5 frames. So we see that that's bringing him right down to 23 meters per second there as he's coming through, so he's getting a bit of a slowdown. It's like that, and then of course he can pick up speed again to this point, and we see a slight slowdown at that corner. Again, I'm just going to accentuate that a little bit, just space that out by a few frames. There we go. He starts to slow down just before it, slows into the corner, accelerates out of it. Now this, I think, because we've got him driving aggressively and because he's got a nice sort of green verge over there, he's not so concerned about the speed at which he's taking this corner. So we'll make this a fast corner there. So we see that coming through that corner, he's currently slowing down a fair bit there. So what we'll do is take the out frame of the corner there and everything thereafter, and let's bring it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames just to start with. Sorry, I've gone to 6 frames there. And how is that? Well, he's coming in quite fast. If anything, he accelerates through that corner. So maybe that was just a little bit too quick. So let's just nudge it another 1, 2 frames there. Okay, that's a bit more like it. He's maintaining his speed. Then he's not speeding up a huge amount through here, going up to 30, down to 29. I say that I want him to sort of accelerate a bit down this straight, so grab all of the frames thereafter, nudge him down a bit, so there we go, he's going up to 32, 33, and slowing down again as he approaches this corner. He's got quite a wide berth, so I don't need him to actually slow down that much, so let's grab all of those and let's bring them down a little bit as well there. So yeah, all going quite quick through there, quick little corner. and then he's got all this length here, doing 30-ish meters per second. We'll definitely want to speed all of that up, so let's grab all of these. So he's doing a good hard acceleration down that whole chunk of street there. It's going up to 32. Let's get him even a bit faster. Let's go. Yeah, there we go, getting up to 34 meters per second. Okay, then coming up to this corner here. Okay, we're going to want him to sort of do this much more slowly, so we're going to need him to start braking in anticipation of this corner. So let's have a look at how soon he needs to brake, give or take. I think he'll probably be hitting the brake somewhere around here, so let's create a keyframe for him where he is. And we can see that, of course, his speed is still high thereafter. That's fine. So let's take all of the frames after that point and drag that timing out there. So now he's slowing down to 26, 24 by the time he's coming into the corner. Might even want to be going a little bit slower. So let's just drag them out a couple more frames. Now there we go, coming right down to 22 before he hits that. We'll also space out the out frame of the out corner point, so he's come slowing right down through that corner, and we're getting him coming right down there to 13 meters per second. Might go even just a little bit slower through that. So there we see, slows right down as he takes that corner. Okay, hits this straight, starts to accelerate, slows a little bit for that corner. That's okay. I think that's pretty good. So we've got a little bit of a rush, a little bit of acceleration, followed by a bit of a braking to take into that corner. And then I said this one I was going to have him coming absolutely hammering around it, so we're going to really accelerate out of that last corner there. So let's grab all of these frames, let's bring them down by quite a few, shall we? How fast is that making him go? 35, 36 meters per second, getting slower through the corner there, which we don't want. We want that to sort of maintain. So let's grab the out corner frame and those after it and stretch those, sorry, not stretch them out, let's bring them in somewhat. I see there, 32. Yeah, I mean, he does obviously need to slow down a little bit, but oh, actually he's accelerating going in there, so that's gone a little bit too fast. Let's just nudge it out by a small amount. Won't be accelerating all that much through it. Yeah, there we go, that's more or less constant. And then we would have him accelerating again as he comes out of that corner. Of course, we had that in between on the pavement or sidewalk there, so let's just worry about our acceleration only for now. So let's delete that keyframe, we can always put one back later. And let's look at his motion there, 29 meters per second. So let's take that, shrink it all down a little more perhaps. There we are, getting up to 34 meters per second. Then coming here, okay, we're going to have a handbrake turn. So he is going to be slowing down somewhat there, and he certainly is going down to 14 meters per second before accelerating out of it. Going up to 33, 34. This is a shorter straight, so maybe he won't be accelerating up quite that fast. So let's just take these and space them a little further along. That brings him down to 31, just a little bit more. There we go, brings him down to 30, 29. Again, a little bit of a punch through this corner. He slows as he comes into it, but then accelerates as he starts to turn. Good. So we'll keep that as it is, but then his movement afterwards down this final leg that we've got him on is slowed down a bit. So let's grab this very final frame and let's just move it back. That's getting him up to 31. Let's do it just a bit more. That's getting him up to 33, 34. So, okay, there's our little run with all of his speeding and spacing along. So let's just take a look at that and we'll see, of course, how it plays back. So there he is, he starts off, starts accelerating up, round, coming along here, okay, starting to slow, taking into the corner, accelerating out of it, a little bit slower through there, coming out of it, going fast and popping out on that side, maintaining his speed through that corner, starts to brake, slowing himself right down to take this corner, this hard corner here, accelerates out of it. Okay, a bit more slowing into that one, then really floors it, comes hammering down here, hammers across that corner there, zipping down this lane. Hard brake as he handbrakes around the corner there, and then of course whizzes over this one a little bit too swiftly and comes up to his end. It is, at this point in time, always worth doing a good thorough pick over your, motion path for your vehicle. Just check for any tiny little lumps or bumps, and there is one here. It's hard to see here in top view, you don't really notice it so much, but it is occurring over this point, and you can sort of see it. There's this little dip here, and then it sort of rolls out and then dips back again. You see it more obviously if we look here in the chase view. You can see that little sort of bump that exists in the path there, and of course when you play back over it, you'll see that the car takes a little nudge like that that's a little bit unnatural. In this case, that's pretty much the only one that I have got. As for correcting for it, easiest way is just to go into the graph editor here. And so we bring up the X and Z channels, which are the only things under effect here. And let's just have a good close peek at them. And really what it is, I think it's going to be my Z channel here. You see it lumps up and then it lumps down again. So that's giving the dip, double dip there. So what I'm going to do is just bring up the tension on that Z. Except I've done that on the wrong key there, sorry, let me just get that correct. There it is, it's that one there. And there, you see my path just shifting that tiny amount, but what that creates for us is a much smoother transition around that bend there. So that's all good. We've got a nice smooth motion path now, pretty much from beginning to end here. So we're quite happy with our work thus far. So what is remaining then? Well, we're going to go into our rig, as we said, and start putting on some of the moves here. So what we'll do is we'll go to the shift controller here, and we're going to use this to sort of weave him about somewhat. Now that first turn there is pretty good, that's okay there. So we're coming into this turn here. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to push him off to the other side of the street. So as of course he takes a bit of a wide line to take that corner. So I think somewhere around here is probably a good place to start him. So I'm going to key him at 180. And as he comes up right before the corner here, I'm going to push that over on X like this. Of course, what that gives is it gives the car performing a small drift across its turn like this, or across its travel, which is reasonably decent all told. So there we are. We're going to come across. Now we don't want him hitting the pavement here, not on this one. So by this point, which is where he's at pretty much maximum overlap, we will have pulled him back, and we can also pop a little bit of a in between, perhaps somewhere around here, just whilst he's sort of at maximum G-force coming round that corner. Just bring it out a little touch more like this, so you get some real hard force into his turn there and just misses impacting on the pavement there. So we'll run ahead a few frames, let's say up to about 75, and we'll reset that so he's pulled himself back from that point there. Now we're going to have something similar occurring over here, so we see he starts to come towards that edge. So we'll key that shift null there, and then right as he's coming round the corner, I'll put him at maximum shift like this, so we get a hard drift over. Again, we want to avoid hooking him up onto the sidewalk, so we'll bring him away by this point. And then we'll look at where he comes along to the next corner, which is there, which is really hard. He's going round that one fast. So let's take a little look at where we want to place him. Well, I'm going to have him cutting in quite tight. So I think that somewhere around here, well, right here as he's coming over that corner of the sidewalk, he's going to be tucked right in here. He's cutting that hard. That gives him a reasonable line along there. But then, as he comes out of that and really has that accelerating run around here, we're going to have pushed him right out like this. So he really gets a drift as he comes across that corner. Watch it played back here. There we go, real drift out there, which he has to correct for pretty swiftly by this point. So let's bring him in there, and we're going to do a similar thing here, have him really drift out. So just as he starts to take the turn there, we'll key him where he is. He comes around right into it, we'll pull him right out, so big drift. And then at this point we'll do a little weave, so he'll be on this side of that car, only to have then swiftly dodged himself back to avoid the next one. So we'll do this little sort of chicanery bit there. Obviously you see he's drifting too much there, obviously he will need to turn, but we'll work on any heading adjustments afterwards. Then what we'll do is, as he comes along here, we'll slowly start to bring him back over to his centre. Now he starts to take a very slow corner here, so as he does that he'll also begin pushing outwards. So let's say by this point we'll bring him across to this side somewhat, and so of course this way sort of orbits around his turn, and here we'll keep him out like this, and as he begins to round it and accelerate, we'll have brought him back across like this here. Again, just before he comes round his turn here, we'll have pushed him off, so he'll be trying to take this wide. Give him a little bit of oversteer, so he comes, out of that quite hard, cutting in here, just like that. And then of course we've got the big run of acceleration as he comes bombing around this corner here very hard. So as he does that, as he really just makes that round, we'll have pushed him right over here. So that's really, really a hard corner for him there. And then, let's say somewhere back here, we'll have brought him in tight like this, so he's really trying to cut the corner very, very tightly. And of course being thrown out by the force of his turn. Perhaps actually that cut in should be even further in time, perhaps somewhere like here. We should get rid of that one. You see that pops a little bit of a slide on him as he comes round like that. Mounts the pavement. And shall we nip him off before that next car? No, let's keep him up there. We'll keep him up until about, let's say, this point. Of course then he's going to be handbrake turning his way around this one. We said he was slowing down a lot. So actually, let us by this point have brought him to the inside to try and cut under that car there. So he's really chomped out and bounced around. Then as he hits just here, just as he begins to turn, by this point, shoof, he's come right across. So he really hits the handbrake on that one and slides out like this, coming back in tight at this point here, carrying along. By this point he's again pulled himself in somewhere here, and around this last corner he'll shoot ever so slightly wide, and coming down we'll have him hit the sidewalk again, I guess. As he comes along he'll begin to right himself like this, and let's say by the end of his move he's come back to his centre again. So we can give this a little watch through and see, how he sort of looks to us. Does he look, quick? Is there action going on? I definitely think there is. Yep, some of these turns are pretty quick and nippy. Got the slow corner here. There we go, takes that quite hard little torque on the turn there. Comes around here, rattling along. Boom, comes in a hard slide there to here. Real hard sort of handbrake manoeuvre. Comes around, little bash again. So with all of that done, we'll give the thing a playback and watch it through, and what we really need to make sure that we're paying attention to is the timing and spacing of the whole thing. We're not just dealing with a simple pendulum or bouncy ball now. We've got something that's really moving around on multiple axes. It's got a lot of dynamic action going on that sort of overlaps and underlaps under parts of its action. So of course you've got the movement and the turn, but then you've got the slides and the offsets that are, overlapping all of that. You've got the braking action that takes place there, the acceleration as you brake out of that, and so on. And we can start to see that there's a few parts that are looking a bit dodgy like that there, where he just sort of pops around that corner. That's a little off. The handbrake turn there, difficult to say at this point, but not completely right. So what we need to do now that we've started to lay in some of these base parts, is to actually go back and refine things. It's not so much that, you know, we've set completely wrong keys and we need to redo a lot of work, but you'll find that we do need to start refining some of that work somewhat. And it's often easiest to start with the more problematic places and then, you know, work through from there. So let's see, the first problematic place that I see is this move that we just saw play right there. It's as he comes around this corner. So yeah, he starts to accelerate out of that just a bit too quickly. So what is the cause of that? Well, it's the fact that we're shoving his, you know, shift off to the side there rather swiftly. That's going perhaps a little bit too fast there. So let's have a look at it and see how we want it to play. What's also going to help is to view this from different, you know, positions and perspectives. So the perspective view here will help give us a decent sense of, you know, the speed and the flow over just following with it in straight top view. So let's have a watch as he comes up and takes this corner here to see how exactly he is looking. That's not bad, you see it from this view and suddenly it looks, you know, quite different. We've got exactly the same sort of timing and whatnot going on here, but you still see that little pop of acceleration that he does there. So what I'm going to do is work on the actual, you know, piece itself here, since I think really that's where my, you know, problem is happening. So we want him to try and bite in, so he's cutting close to the corner there like that. So that's, you know, probably fine, but he's probably coming out just a little too fast. So what I'm going to do is take a look at where his keyframes are. So I see that that key is back there. So what I will do is actually bring the keyframe, this is on his main root item of course, I'm going to bring that out by a little bit so it slows that transition down ever so slightly. We can see how that starts to play. Okay, he's still of course popping and accelerating too much out of that. If we look at it in view 2 here, so as we can see what actually is going on with his different parts there, so as we can see how they're working together. Okay, that little change that I made on the main route there, that works well. It's nice and smooth and you get that slight little slowdown as he comes round the corner there, so that's pretty natural. Let's see what that shift null is doing for us now. Yeah, see, that's sort of just whizzing over as if he's done, it's almost as if he's hit ice or something and he's suddenly getting this crazy slide. So all that we really want to do, I think here, given the speed that he's going, is simply to reduce the amount by which he comes sliding out. So let's just bring him in here and let's see how that plays. We could of course push the slide out further ahead in time, but in this case I've opted to just bring it in terms of space, and that is starting now, I think. Have a little look as he comes further out. I'll pan my view. I think that is starting to look significantly better already. So there we are. Yeah, that's a lot more like it. But we still have this little side slide action, of course. It looks like, you know, I've got him very close to where the green root is moving, and I have, but I'm still getting a little bit of outside slide there, which is quite important here. So let's stick with him, see where we're up to there. That's fine. Okay, let's see how he takes this corner, because I believe that had a bit of too much acceleration coming out of it. So let's have a watch here, see what we get. Actually, that's not bad, but it's a bit slow once he takes the corner. He sort of brakes afterwards. We've also got something of a lump in our motion there as well. So out he comes, and then yes, he appears to slow down. So let's just have a quick look and see where that action is coming from. It really appears to be coming from the, you know, main route here. This is where our slowdown is occurring. If we have a look at his speedometer, it doesn't appear to be a huge change on the speedo there. It's not a huge change in terms of the movement of his route. In fact, if we play it forwards and backwards, it is looking a bit better. It could well be a slight illusion of watching the red thing. So let's come to our perspective here. There we go. And let's spin around somewhere. Here we go. Let's see what he looks like coming round that corner there. Starting to do a little bit of a go slow. So what I'll do is to speed that up, to grab his shift null here. So that's him coming out of the bend like this, taking it a bit wide. We'll hold him there up until this frame, in this case 528. Halfway point here, we're going to accelerate him ever so slightly forwards to see how that plays out, shall we? Might be a little crazy, but let's find out. This is often how doing animation like this will work. You'll experiment with things. Yeah, see, he starts to just speed up there too much. So I'm not happy with that. I think that perhaps the little additional frame that I've put in there, 10 frames over, has really sort of helped things to actually even out a bit better there. So yes, that's working, I think, quite well. Again, I'm going to just take another quick look here with my perspective view so I can get a bit more, of an idea of context here. See how this whole thing appears. Yeah, apart from the actual angle of the car itself, which is, quite wrong at this point, I think that is working out now quite well. So I'll worry about the angular stuff afterwards. For the minute, watching the speed, I think that's reasonably decent there. So we'll see what he does down the length of this. Then make sure that weave that he does between the vehicles there is looking decent, and it is, apart from of course the fact that he doesn't really turn, he doesn't angle himself. But then we've got the slow down at this corner, so we really need him to be braking before it, which he is there, and that's fine, and there's a good burst of acceleration as he comes out of it. So I am pretty happy with that corner. Let me make sure I'm happy really with the turning circle that he makes, and I'm not pulling him that wide on his shift null there, so that is pretty good. Again, he's a little off angle, but never mind that. Sort that out once we've got the speed and so forth down and done well. So check out how he's coming along this whole stretch and into that corner. I believe from when we watched this before it actually looked quite alright. Come on. So he comes whizzing down, comes wide to take it. Yep, slows down a bit into the corner. Double check that that's all playing well from here. Down, slows a little, yep, and then starts to accelerate out. So that's all looking good. This corner, however, is a mess. We can see easily here the kink in the motion path, which is where my shift null and the main route are, completely working at odds with one another. And yeah, look at that terrible slide. He just accelerates hugely sideways, which is completely wrong. Again, it's like he's hit a terrible patch of ice or something, or some kind of kicker in some video game to give him a sudden burst of sideways acceleration. That really doesn't work. So we're definitely going to need some adjustment here. What I'm going to do is work on the whole approach that he's taking. I'm wanting to try and make the most of this width, so sort of cutting along here perhaps more. So here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to come to where that key back there was, and I'm going to get him sort of halfway down the street like this. Okay, somewhere around about there, 880-ish, maybe a little later, 885. And I'm going to put a key on the main route here, bringing him over. So of course he's come out of that corner and is sort of pulling himself to the side, ready to anticipate this next one there. I think it might work if I now delete that keyframe, and it does. Deleting that keyframe there at 923 helps. You see the main path of the route there. Okay, that's cutting and trying to use the width of that shallow angle, so that's good. So now let's get rid of that terrible keyframe, which was causing that ugly lump, and let's make sure that out here he is brought up like this. Okay, that looks significantly better there now, and somehow I've got him going right over onto the grass here. That's wrong. Let's just have him here on the actual pavement itself. Okay, and let's just watch that little bit of sequence back to see how we are looking there. So he comes along, he's rallying down, ready to take this, whoosh, right the way round. Okay, again, I think a little bit of context will help us to, get a decent view on how this really is looking. So back to my perspective here, I can really see him zipping past and going into that corner. So there we go, and whiz, around he comes like that. Okay, pretty good. However, not all that fast when I'm looking at him like this. I think he can do that a little bit quicker. So what I'm going to do is come here. Okay, so my keyframe there on his shift was at 883. I'm actually just going to nudge it then to 885, which is of course the same frame as we've got a key for the main driver there. So I'll select both of those guys, and what I'm going to do is take all keys thereafter, which is basically this here, and I'm going to bring them in a bit, let's say 6 frames. Let's see how that plays. There we go, coming along, starts to accelerate, whiz around that corner. As we go a little faster, it's really building up some acceleration there. Let's pull that there. That works pretty well, but he needs to keep that speed up coming out. Let's just have a look at his speedo and see what he's doing. So good grief. See, he's hitting highs of 40 odd meters per second at that point, but then he's coming down quite slow in the aftermath. So let's make sure that he's still swift here. Let's pull those guys down, and there we go. That's pretty quick. And we see he's starting to decelerate, of course, as he comes out of that, going back down to his 30, obviously, because he's now got obstacles and that handbrake turn coming up ahead. So let's just take another little look at that in perspective view here. Comes rattling down, whizzing round, pretty quick. Yeah, that's pretty good. We'll come over here, slightly alternative angle on the whole action here. So let's watch how it goes from there. Coming along, that's pretty quick. Doing good deal of speed as he comes round there. So like that. Let's stick with that. Now we'll come back to our top view and make sure that we're looking good and clean in this bit. So out of that bend, hit up onto the pavement, pulling it back, just weaving around that. So let's make sure that we've got a good push on him there, so he's really hoofing it over to try and make sure he doesn't hit that car front there. That's good. He starts to accelerate out of that, and this is where he hits the handbrake, which is currently a little bit dodgy in appearance. So let's just see what we can clean up there. What will help will be to get some of our keys in time with one another. So we've got a key there for the driver. Let's get the key at this point for the shift, like that. So he's coming along, catching back up with his driver, and as that comes round, he really comes out. And I think he's coming out just too far, quite simply. We don't need him to make that big a dodge. So we can pull him back in somewhat like this. And that should mean that he catches that slowdown of momentum there. Yeah, that's better, of course. You see his forward momentum, that is his, or should I say upward, in terms of the screen space here. His upward momentum really slows at that point, which of course it would. He's handbraking, and then of course as he swings round, then he starts to accelerate forward, which of course he doesn't immediately have that forward acceleration. Again, he's got to build it back up, having come to a bit of a handbrake turn. So that's pretty good. Let's just decide if perhaps he's slowing too much too fast. I don't think so. No, I think that works reasonably well, but we could have more drift on him. It wouldn't actually hurt us to do that, I don't think. And in fact we can pull him backwards with the shift like that, which also helps to accentuate the action there a little bit, I think. Yes, that does indeed. We can do a similar thing, I think, here this. So that again means that he's, just a little slower to accelerate forwards again, but then he really picks it up here. And then as we turn him in, I'm going to push him further in so he tries to cut this corner tighter. That's what I think he should really be aiming for. Try and cut a tight line there, as best he can at least. So he comes round. We've got a nasty lump there, which is a slowdown. So what is producing that? Well, it's quite simply the fact that we're reducing the space that he's travelling by using this shift null, whilst of course he's got good speed coming up there, so that's essentially forcing him into a slowdown. So again, I'm just going to sync up some keys here, which should help make this a little easier. So I'll keep him up-ish here, get rid of that one, and back to the driver. There's its next key. Push him in at this point there, and then he won't need to come quite as far up to hit the pavement like that. We'll make a slightly better inside line. There we go. So we should get a bit of deceleration around that corner and then accelerating out of it. Again, good perspective view will help us visualize how that actually looks in real practice. So here he is, just coming up to the corner back there. We'll hit play. There we go. Okay, little too shifted on the side there, so I can probably get rid of that frame altogether. Just have that one in the aftermath there. So here we go, comes around. It's a bit more like it, yeah. Okay, so let's watch him all the way through and see how he does. So there he is, taking off. This currently is going reasonably well. It's looking pretty decent there. Okay, he's coming up. Bit of a slow before he goes into that, but that's all right, I think. Makes that corner okay there. Coming along, this should look a lot smoother and cleaner. It does. He starts to accelerate out of that, which is good. Good acceleration through the corner there. Bit of a weave. Coming down and braking, getting ready to take this corner, which he does pretty successfully. Coming through here, yeah, making that turn into there. Coming around here, setting himself up, cutting right across and accelerating through that corner. Coming up to here, doing his handbrake, pretty decent, accelerates out of it and makes his last corner and his little last run. Okay, it's also quite handy at this stage for me to kick in the chase view and have a look from here, because of course one thing that you'll notice is looking from certain angles, particularly down from above, is parts of it can seem really quite slow. He doesn't really seem to be whizzing along that great a speed, but once you get into his POV, he's clearly doing a bit more here, and areas that previously looked quite slow, like his brake to take this corner, don't look quite as slow as they did before anymore either. So that's very useful stuff to have going on as well. So pretty much doing quite well there. The handbrake there, that looks good, and the sense of motion that we're getting out of this view does seem to be working quite well. Now you might notice in a few places, and you can just see it at the very end here, this terrible jittering that's going on. That is due to the old aligned path that we've got going on here. So that gives us the odd problem in the odd place there. So I want to get all of that cleaned up, and how I'm going to do it is basically just to go through and key off all of these keys that we've got set for the driver item here, because of course that will key up their rotations at this point, their heading rotations. So those will be fixed, and what I'll then do is I'll get rid of the aligned path and instead just rely on the keyframes. So I'll kill off that aligned path, put it back to keys, and we'll see that the jittering will have gone, but some of our mess will have occurred here and there as he takes little slidey keys to these different points. That's okay so far, but you see he's not completely lining up there, right? So we'll need to tweak some of that as we go. And we've also got this messed up key that we saw at the end there, where he comes here and he goes back the other way, which is an Euler rotation. So all I simply want to do is just go here and come to this frame and just subtract 360 from it, and we can see that that's put the heading there back on the right side. So that's all good. Good news. Now I'm going to make sure that I'm on auto key modified only, and I'm going to set some heading in betweens here to make sure that he's not drifting too much. So we see that after this frame here, we really need an in between here, turning him. So turn him like this. See that at this point he's got a bit of turn back there, so that's okay. And at this point he started to deviate, so we'll just like that, and you see I'm basically just lining up the little heading pointer here to the, to the path, pretty much deviated by this point. So we just bring that like this, and let's just check previous ones. Yeah, that's okay there, so it's holding well enough there through to that point. Okay, all right, starting to deviate quite a bit on the in between there. Just bring that back over like that. Well deviated here, because of course he's going across up there. Yeah, that comes in, that goes out well enough like that. Good, good. Keep it nice and in line-ish there. Good. Okay, we're starting to deviate a bit too much there, so let's bring it back again, along. Starting to deviate a bit much at that point, so let's just hold that steady. Yep, that works well. Going nice and cleanly there. That's well held. Start to bring it up here, because of course he's turning in quite hard at that point. Bit there, out to that point there. Now we're radically turning too quickly, so let's make sure it's held up until that point. There he is, whizzing round. Okay. Want to make sure that that is holding. Further along, still a little deviated, so we'll put it back again between there. Yeah, that's doing quite well there. Handbrake, that's fine, works. Yeah, that's holding its line pretty good. Here, actually, even though that's slightly deviated given his motion, that works well, and we're good there, and we're pretty much fine through here as well. Could perhaps come a little bit into line by that point, but that is, so it's a little deviated away there, so we want to fix it back here also. Okay, so once again, that's all pretty nice. Thing to do now then is start working on some of these keys in the graph. So let's pop open the graph editor, come to his heading rotation there, make sure that they're all splined, and let's take a look. Right, so we've got a little bit of a wiggle going on there, which is this sort of in between time, so let's tighten all of that up. That's pretty good. Again, we've got a wiggle over there. You can inspect that to see what that refers to. This here, so he sort of understeers before going out. That's fine. Let's just tighten that off. Makes that a little better. Again, we've got the same going on there, so let's tighten across here. We've got too much on the out there, as we can see it just starts to dip under, so we'll bring that up. Other than that, the rest of these look pretty clean. We've got a nice smooth curve through all of that. So let's go to his what's it, the shift null here, and let's also get busy on the curving with that. Of course, that's going to be the X and Z channels. We did a little bit of adjustment on on a couple of positions on Z, not much. We didn't really push him back and forward a lot. So let's tighten up wherever that might be drifting out too much here, so as we can be sure that that's reasonably clean, decent keys going on through there. So there we go. That takes care of just those couple on the Z. And let's take a nice close look at our X. Okay, so we've got a bit of drift here on this initial X key through, and see what we've actually got here. So we might push that. We could delete some of these keys perhaps. Let's see, a little bit of a wiggle there, you see. So let's tighten that right up like this. Makes that better. This key is coming in here where he really sort of slopes over like that. So let's shove that negative. And you see, of course, that sort of pits it out some, makes it a bit more of a valley a little swifter, so that gives him just a little bit more whoosh as he whizzes around there. We come here and we've got this double dip, but it's only minor, but we will want to tighten those up, so let's grab those, push those off a bit there. Then we come into this frame there, and that's really quite well handled. I can probably tighten this initial frame at the base here up just a touch. And then we've got a similar thing to what happened over here where we've got this keyframe, so I can slink that a little bit negative, which just gives it that extra bit of, you know, pop and weightedness to its movement like that. Here that's all pretty clean. That is a little heavy and oversold too early there, so let's tighten that. That gives it a smoother transition through there. Get that position is smooth, that one is. Here we've got a little dodge. Grab those two, tighten those off a bit. Again here we're overshooting, but at what point? Of course it's here. But yes, we can tighten that one back just a little. And we can perhaps throw this one slightly negative, so as when we've got both the top and bottom positions there tightened, that gives the whole action just a little bit more pop and swing like that, which is quite nice. And of course we've got that action there in the handbrake turn. That can tighten up quite a bit. I reckon that one can go slightly negative as well, to again give that a little more swing, and I can possibly do the same on that preceding one, I think. There we go, give that a little more swing. And right at the end here, well, let's tighten that up so he eases into that last position, shall we? Just give that a little tweak to, there we go, smooth the transition into it. So much cleaner looking curve now for the X position of the shift null. So back to playback time, we'll go through the entire thing, give it a watch, see that he's looking, you know, reasonably nice, which we hope he is at this point, and he seems to be doing quite well. Okay, he's coming along, the movement's pretty smooth, the overall action is pretty good so far. Yep, takes that corner nicely, he's coming into that one, yep, that works well, doing the weave in and out there. Sharp, we can look at tidying that up if need be. Yep, good slowdown for coming into that corner and then really accelerating out of it, bringing himself around to take that line, good. Really ramping up there, overshooting on his little follow through, nipping in and out. Eek, hard turn there, that's pretty good. Comes out of it, slows in and starts accelerating quickly through that one. Brilliantly. Okay, so pretty pleased with what we've got here so far then. Let's go to the chase view so as we can get an idea of what it looks like to be actually behind the wheel, so to speak. That's all pretty decent there, takes that nicely. Yeah, good action, nice timing through there. Here, turning in, accelerating hard out of it. Yeah, drifting out as he takes that corner quite swiftly, little weave, coming across here, braking to go round, takes that nice and tight here, pulls himself out, ready to whip round, which he does, sees his line, gets it ready, coming that up, mounts the pavement, dodge that car, hit the handbrake, eek, coming around, and then of course making his final turn in. And to our end point there. Okay. This point then in the work is probably a good time to wrap this video up. It has been going on quite a while and we've done, you know, quite a lot of work here. We've got all of our basic timing and, you know, overall sketched out our action pretty thoroughly. So it seems like a good time to take a break, and we will continue of course on with all of the next phase of this action in the next video.